what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda, and we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I'm joined by my friend here, Zack ROI Williams, who I'm going to introduce in a minute. But before I do, I have one favor to ask. If you're listening to this episode and you get any value out of it, which I'm positive you will by the end of it, please share the show with a family member or a friend who you think might also get some value out of it. That is the whole point of this podcast, is to inspire people, let everyone out there know that no human being goes through life untouched. We all have our own battles. The difference between people who are winning at life and who are losing at life, the winners are fighting their way through those battles and they're coming out stronger on the other side. And then obviously the losers are playing the victim card and doing all that nonsense, which is not what we are about. So I bring guests onto the show to share some of the battles that they've experienced, why and how they fought their way through those battles, and basically the life that they are now living because they had the courage and the fortitude to fight those battles. All right, without further ado, I got my buddy here, Zack Williams. Zack, and you didn't put this in your bio, but I'm going to do it for you. Zack motherfucking ROI Williams is a marketing veteran with 16 plus years of experience in the industry. He focuses on businesses doing 3 to 5 million and takes them over the 10 million mark. He has an intellectual strategy of helping businesses get reimbursed for their marketing expenses and produce a return on investment with those funds. Zack also has a book launching April 13th of 2023, which he plans on hitting the Amazon bestsellers charts. And let me just go on record as saying it's February 3rd. I have absolutely no doubt that that would become a best-selling book within minutes of it launching. So congratulations in advance, man. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks for being here, dude.
Thanks, Matt, bro. Dude, I'm stoked to be here. I enjoy vibing with people like yourself who just like-minded individuals, high achievers, people that don't take no for an answer. So I'm fucking pumped to be here.
Awesome, brother. Yeah, so I'm sure you've had some battles in your life, whichever one or two or whatever you're comfortable sharing with our audience. And then, like I said in the beginning, how you fought your way through that battle and why you fought your way through that battle. I'm excited to hear from you, man.
Man, it's kind of comical that I ended up on this show, and then just because of everything that's going on in my life with the book launch and everything, that it's like this, and you just made your statement. So not to make it a pitch, but that's really cool, because my book, that's what this is. It's 5 massive battles that I had to learn the hard way, through, and what lessons I derived out of it on my own. Because, honestly, there is very few self-help books that are focused on pulling you through the shit when you're in the shit. A lot of it's some rah bullshit. It's all right, man, I'm already feeling good. Let's just, pep me up some more. But so this one was kind of an inside look on who I am and who I became because of some of these adversities. So, man, the one that just kind of is not everyone knows about, but the big one that sticks out, if they do know about it, they would tell you it would be my motorcycle wreck. So ironically, the book launches on the 10-year anniversary of a day that I almost didn't survive. And so the mental challenges, the physical challenges, are what made me who I am today. So long story short, riding my motorcycle, minding my own business, someone pulled out in front of me and hit me head on. I mean, I was doing 55, 60 my way. They were doing about 25, 30 their way. So if you can imagine what 90 miles an hour to a brick wall feels like, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And basically what derived from that situation was, $1.2 million in medical bills. I ended up coding on the emergency room table twice, even so much so that I found out later that if I had coded again, or if it had gone much longer, that I wouldn't be here, right? They had to make that decision where we can't help this dude. I went through 9 emergency surgeries in 7 days. 3 of those were happening simultaneously as soon as I went into the ER. I went through 27 units of blood in 9 days. To put that in perspective, your body only holds 8 to 10 units.
Wow.
So basically fully bled out 3 complete times. And if I had wrecked anywhere that was not a blood bank, you wouldn't be talking to me. I literally bled the hospital itself out of blood. And even we made national news of this. Again, none of this has to do with me. It was all, God, and then all the homies. But they took up 3 complete floors of waiting rooms in the hospital, so much so that the hospital had to be hey, who are you here for? You're here for Zack, and you can't come in, because we were just overpopulating the hospital. But the beautiful thing about that is over 100 people went on to donate blood.
Wow.
Not everyone has my, blood type, but the beautiful thing is I've got strangers' blood running through my veins now. And now, due to all my 100 people, homies, like giving blood, now there's so many strangers that have their blood in them that help get them through a battle in and of itself.
That's incredible, man. I always say stuff like, life happens. Like, I don't believe in coincidences, but like you said, man, the fact that you had that accident by a hospital that had that blood, like, it sucks that you had to have that accident, or that was like part of your story that was bound to happen. Obviously not, because you came through it. Now you're stronger for it. But man, if it had to happen, thank you God for having it happen right there on that street next to that hospital, that like I was able to survive it, because you do it in a town over and you're not here today.
Man, yeah, there was a lot that went into it as far as all the right things that just happened to happen. I
Yeah.
mean, not only the surgery, so the surgery site, the main surgery, the main injury, not physically, but just most detrimental, is I tore my aorta, which at the sector that I tore, it was about the size of a garden hose. And that's the same sector that, to put it in perspective, that airplane crash victims die from. If there's not an actual explosion, it's just force of impact. There's that much impact to your torso, it tears that aorta, and you end up bleeding out before medical services are there to render aid. And so as I'm bleeding out in the middle of the street, which at the time is the busiest street in Memphis, Tennessee, where I wrecked, because of it being just so busy and congested. I mean, this was, at rush hour on a Saturday, right? They had to flip a coin. Essentially, the police chief had to make a decision on whether or not there was enough time to make enough room for the airlift to pick me up and take me via helicopter, or that ground transport could get me back to the hospital quick enough before I bled out. So the final decision was made. They took me by ground transport. It was somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes was what that ride took. But thank God I'm here. Didn't bleed out on the way, and they were able to, it was just a series. And not only that, the sector of the aorta that I tore, only 1 in 3 people actually survived the physical surgery itself.
Holy shit, man. Crazy. So like how soon after, obviously you're probably not totally with it as that's happening, and you're getting rushed to a hospital, you're going under surgery right away. Like, was it days? Was it hours? Was it like a week or two that before you came to it and you were like, holy shit, like look at the condition I'm in?
It was pretty interesting, and it's kind of hard to explain on the latter part of like me coming to, because I know because of stories that I came to, but I don't have any like really remembrance of it. But essentially, for those that are listening, I don't know if any of y'all like growing up were like skateboarding or BMX or whatever. Like every time, like right before a wipeout, there's this like millisecond thought process that's like, oh shit, this is happening. Like there is like, I'm going down, dog,
It's gonna hurt.
And it was kind of one of those moments, because when he pulled out in front of me, like I said, bro, minding my own business. Like I'm in rush hour traffic. Like there's no reason why like people should be driving erratically. But anyways, minding my own business. And because of the way everything happened and how quick it happened, like when I say a split second, like I didn't swerve, I didn't hit the brakes, I didn't even let off the gas. Like when I hit him, like I was still in it, you know what I mean? So as this pulled out, there was not enough time for me to react, but I had that millisecond. I was like, fuck, this is it. This is happening. So I hit him. Now, supposedly, and I'm going to say supposedly, but what happened, because there were so many eyewitnesses, again, rush hour traffic. I hit him and I did 3 complete front flips in the air. Just 1, 2, 3. I flew over 100 feet away before I hit the ground and bounced off the ground. And for those of you that know motorcycles and stuff, who knows, is it better to slide? Is it better to bounce? Is it better to roll? Anyways, it was, who knows what the best way of this to go, but there was no there was no brain function that I can remember while I was flying through the air. Like, I do not remember that. I remember hitting him. I do not remember flying through the air, but I do remember laying on the ground. And this was going to feed right into this podcast. Is I'm laying there, and to this day, I don't know if she was an angel. I don't know if she was a real person. I don't know who she was, but here I am laying in the middle of the street in a pool of my own blood. And when I say pool, you should see the pictures. It is a pool of my own blood. Busiest street in Memphis, 6 lanes wide, completely shut off, stopped. People are getting out of their cars. They're stealing my money. They're stealing my shoes. They're trying to steal my pistol. I'm bleeding out. I'm literally dying feet away from people trying to steal my goddamn shoes, right? And I just remember being the most tired that you've ever been in your entire life. Like, you just got off a fast. Like, as tired as you were, multiply that by 10. Like, I cannot even fathom how tired I felt. And in my head, all I wanted to do was go to sleep. But I knew what that meant. I knew that meant I was going to die. So I just fought through it, and I kept myself awake. And, all the cliche things that you see in movies, I kind of joke around about. The reason they're in movies is because they're true. Someone went through an experience like I did and told them their story, and they replicated it. Like the whole, like, your life flashing through before your eyes, like that happened. I was sitting there thinking about who I was fighting to stay alive for, right? What I had in life left to do. But anyways, I was able to fight through that. I was cognitive enough to give this lady my mom's phone number by heart. And then EMS showed up, and EMS starts strapping me on. And at this point, EMS is like, yo, where's it hurt, bro? And I'm like, I don't hurt. But I kept pointing to my waistline saying, I feel pressure, I feel pressure, I feel pressure. And so for, many people that are in the medical field or have been hurt before, like, obviously there's ways of rating pains, like, pressure being like one of those, but it's just a weird way to describe it, being painful or like a sharp pain. So I just kept saying I felt pressure. Well, what had happened was I had a very, very heavy duty leather belt on. And because of my shattered pelvis and all my internal bleeding and my ruptured stomach and my ruptured bladder and everything that had ruptured internally and all the internal bleeding, my body was bloating. But this leather belt was holding it tight right there and holding me together. So that's what I was feeling, was the pressure of my body trying to press out with this belt that was not moving.
Keeping it in.
Yep. And so I remember the whole, ambulance ride there. And then again, straight out of a movie, they were offloading me from the ambulance into surgery. And it was just like, I was watching these like ceiling tiles and these lights just fly right in front of me because I'm got a neck brace on. I'm strapped down literally. And, I just see these boom, boom, boom. The lights are passing. The ceiling tiles are passing. I got like multiple nurses on either side. I can hear them like calling into OR, right? I can hear all this stuff, and it's just exactly like what you see in movies.
Yeah.
Same thing. Get rolled into this OR room. There's fucking hoses everywhere and bags hanging everywhere, and there's nurses running around passing all these tools, and then all of a sudden over my head, here comes this like masked figure that says, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm the, nurse anesthetist. I'm going to be helping you go to sleep today. It's like, you mind counting backwards with me from 100? Like, yep, 100, 99, 98, 90, and I'm out, right? And that's all I remember. And then from story's sake, all I remember is being told, that I was out for about 9 days. I don't remember any of this, but one of my best friends from growing up, his dad showed up. His name's Mr. Yuri. And apparently I'd had plenty of visitors and stuff. And, my poor family that had been by my side since day one, here comes Mr. Yuri. He walks in, I wake up, I sit up and I go, Mr. Yuri. And I lay back down and I pass back out. And that was it. Right.
That's awesome.
And outside of that, and I don't really remember like coming to, but I do remember my life like in actually the ER and like some of the stuff that went on. Because I was in the ER for about 4 weeks. So 9 weeks in is when I supposedly woke up. And then at some point I gained like consciousness to be able to like go back to and remember like my memories of that time. So however much longer I spent in the ER, and then I remember, they put me in step down unit for about 2 weeks before they released me. And I remember a majority of that too. But yeah, dude, it was a crazy,
Man,
crazy, crazy
two
series.
two questions. So
Yeah.
the accident happened, you're laying there and you said you were kind of like, I'm tired, all I want to do is sleep, but you didn't because you knew that probably meant you were going to die. And then in your head, you're kind of running through like reasons to live, who you still need to be. Were you married with a daughter at that time, or were you single? Or like what when you were looking for that reason to leave, or like who you wanted to be, like what was that dialogue? Or
That's a beautiful question, because for those of you who know me, or those of you who are going to do a little research on me after this, like I am massively, massively, massively happily married, with a beautiful, beautiful daughter. And you'll read. I don't want to give away too much that's in the book, because the
yeah,
stories are great, but I can't give away. This is my life story, and I've talked about it often, but I just go into detail with it in the book. But a month prior to this wreck, um, well, actually, I lied. It was like 3 months prior to this wreck. I ended up going through a divorce of someone that I'd been with for like 7 years. That was like my high school sweetheart, and she had a child, and I found out that child wasn't mine. So like in about a 90-day time frame, I went from being married, so having a kid, I thought the whole like American dream, like had a house, had a 6-figure job,
yeah,
had everything, to the wreck, where coming through that. And at the time, and we'll get into some further things that happened financially because of the wreck and everything, that I wasn't aware of at that point. But at that point in time, life as I had known it, I had just gotten out of a massive depression because of everything. So like theoretically,
you had every reason to just
I
let life drift away.
exactly. And so, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, but like there was something inside of me that like let me know that I was not done yet. Like,
It's awesome.
I don't get me wrong, like I had um thoughts of my family and my, friends of the time. I mean, most of them are still my friends, but like I
Yeah.
I had thoughts on like people that I cared about, but nothing as tight as like, what I have now with my wife and daughter. So like, you know, when I talk about this, I'm sure there's like contradicting podcasts out there where in like one light I'm saying like I had nothing to live for, or didn't know what I was living for or fighting for, but then there's somewhere I'm like, no, I knew exactly what it was. Because it's
Hmm.
a very strange feeling knowing like I had just come out of such a depressive state, and then there was something unexplainable that, like, yes, I had people in my life to fight for,
Hmm.
but like what internally made me push through is something I can't comprehend, because now having what I have, I understand why I fought.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't know that, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. I, like you said, something, God, universe, conscious, like your future you speaking to you, whatever it was, being like, nah, man. Like you might feel like there's only a couple small reasons to hold on, but like there's something big out there. You got a big difference to make in the world. Fucking pull through this shit and get to the other side. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, bro, 100%.
What did like recovery look like? Were you able to walk after, like you said you were in the hospital whatever a couple of weeks and then you got discharged? Like were you in like a wheelchair? Were you able to walk pretty much and function? Or like, because I hear your story, I'm like, God, you flipped 3 times in the air, 100 feet, hitting the guy going like 90 miles an hour collectively. Like
Yeah.
I would imagine you're like an invalid for 5 years trying to recover, but like I don't think that's the case.
Dude, it's so comical. Like I feel like you've read my book, and like you're like going through this.
Yeah.
Um, but no, seriously, this is gonna be really comical to you and probably like a mantra for me being on this show. But they actually told me I was never gonna be able to walk again.
Okay.
So I shattered my pelvis, which was like the main reason that they claimed. So shattered pelvis, and I had a shattered kneecap. So like I still to this day have screws and wire that holds one of my kneecaps together. Hindsight, I think that knee's actually now stronger than than
Yeah,
my real
probably
knee. But
bionic. Yeah.
yeah. But the shattered pelvis was the main one. And for anyone listening, like I would never, to my worst enemy, wish a shattered pelvis on someone. Like that's your
Yeah.
center of gravity. It holds you together. And out of everything I've been through my entire life, that is the absolute most painful injury I could have gone through. But anyways, the shattered pelvis and the kneecap were like the big question marks on like what my future walking looked like. And I was scared, to be honest. I was scared to think that I might be constrained to a wheelchair, but also I even told the doctor he didn't know who the fuck he was talking to, like that drive, that ambition. And, a lot of things from my motorcycle wreck make me question the medical field, right? Like, this is going to be a complete conspiracy theory, and I probably shouldn't be mentioning this on there.
Please do.
Yeah, like I genuinely feel like there are a lot of doctors, and maybe this is generational, but there's a lot of doctors out there that did start their business for a good reason in the beginning where they wanted to help people, but at some point it transitions into just a job and a revenue source. And if we're not keeping these people 100% up to date on the medical experiences and offers that are out there in this world, like I feel like there's a massive disconnect in like the information we're giving people. But myself, I'm saying this from, there's going to be some people who listen to this episode and be like, he's fucking full of shit. Like I got my PhD, and honestly, I don't give a fuck what you think. I'm talking about my personal experience, but my personal experience was I told I'd never be able to have kids again. I was told I was never going to be able to walk again. And I proved all these motherfuckers wrong, but to answer the question, I was in ICU for 4 weeks collectively. I was in step down unit for about 2 weeks. So about 6-7 weeks in the hospital itself. I got obviously discharged in a wheelchair like they do with everyone. And then I came home where a medical bed was in my living room waiting on me. So I lived in my medical bed. I'm going to get the timelines mixed up just because I'm saying it off the dome, but the majority of these are right on par. So like I know for a fact I didn't walk for over 9 months, or I didn't walk by myself for over a year, but 9 months was like really that timeline when I really started to like walk under my own weight. But the process, what it looked like was laying in the hospital bed. I had to wait till they took I had an internal fixator in my pelvis. So what that was where my hip bones are essentially. They drilled a rod into those, and I had what's called an open book fracture. So when I hit the motorcycle, my pelvis splayed open like a book. So they drilled holes in these rods inside of my pelvis. They pulled my pelvis back to where it's supposed to be, and they put a rod from rod to rod that held it together. Jeez. And so as I had that internal fixator in, I was able to be like kind of transported back and forth as need be into a wheelchair. And I could stand up some, but I really could not start walking until that came out. But regardless, the process was me laying flat on my back on my medical bed. And then they would put a piece of like kind of like wax paper under one of my legs and under my heels. And I had to get used to just moving my leg side by side under its own pressure while being on the bed, while also being on like this like wax paper to help that transition. Like, that is what little movement I had. From there, it got to the point where they transitioned me to where I could sit up and like kind of let my legs hang off the bed. Then it eventually got to where we could, with a team, transition me from the bed to a wheelchair. From there, both my arms and my feet, I had to use like those little like pedal, stationary bike pedals. And for my leg, my lower half, I could not do a full rotation. Like, so it literally started where my feet were side by side, and I would literally just like barely move them back and forth. And like every week we got a little bit further, get to that sticking point where it's like, it was right there.
Right there. Just, one more inch.
Dude, I spent like a fucking week there, you know what I mean? Just getting over that. And so, from that point, we kind of transitioned to walking on a walker with 2 people beside me. And it was a strange kind of walker, not like one I've ever seen before. So it was like your traditional walker, but it had this like arm attachment, so I could bear a majority of my weight on my arm. I think the majority of that had to do with I broke my wrist in that wreck too. So I think that's the majority of it. But that's kind of how I walked around, where I held one side of it traditionally, and the other side was like holding on to this weird like arm thing. So I'm using this walker with two people on either side of me. Then it got to where it was just one person, and then it got to where I could just kind of hobble around in the house on this walker. And then from that point, it moved to crutches. And then from crutches, it got to where I was just like walking around my house with like countertops and walls and couches and anything I could hold myself up on. But after that, so about a year was when I got to walk under my own two feet. But I'll tell you a funny story real fast. Going back to like fucking battling and shit, like, for someone that never gets told no, or, whatever, is pig-headed and they'll do whatever they want. So during one of my wheelchair stages, I was so fucking pissed off just being locked inside of a house and not getting to experience like outside or outdoors or just wind or, whatever, sunlight. I wheelchaired myself to the front door and let myself out the front door and down our driveway to just kind of sit there and chill. And after about 15 minutes, I couldn't get back up the driveway. So I'm sitting in the middle of the street at the edge of my driveway, just waiting for someone to notice that I'd made myself out the front door to come push me back up.
You need a hero.
Yeah, bro.
So during that entire accident happens, you're laying there, there's like a bigger life after this struggle. So you're like being told from someone or something, fight your way through it, let's get there. And now you're going through this like over a year long, like pretty arduous rehab where you're stuck in a bed, like can't walk, confined to inside the house. I would go fucking nuts. So I could kind of feel that anxiety for you. Are there moments in that time, like in those months of like small, tiny movements with your feet and like very little progress being made where you're like, this fucking sucks, I'm giving up. Like if I'm going to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life, so fucking be it? Or was it the same thing that was calling you when you were laying in your puddle of blood, the same thing that was kind of driving you through that recovery phase to get healthy because you knew something on the other side was waiting for you?
Yeah, I think the light switch happened was when the doctor told me I was never going to be able to walk again. But I will say, like, this will be interesting for the people listening, I'm sure. There was a moment in the hospital. So I never went through like suicidal thoughts, so to say. Like I never was like, oh, I hope I can slit my wrist, or I hope I can eat these pills or whatever. But I will say that, and I preface this with saying like, I am not taking any light to people that do go through suicidal thoughts or deep, dark depression like that. But what I'm going to say, and hopefully those people can understand where my heart is and where I'm coming from when I say this, is when you're having suicidal thoughts or whatever, traditionally, you have the ability to take your own life if you wanted to, right? Like you have the option to graphically pull the trigger or swallow the pills or whatever the case is. There is a special kind of hell where if you wanted to, but you still couldn't. And that was the thought process that happened in the hospital room, because it was not fun. I was in pain, excruciating pain, nonstop. I mean, they gave me one of those like, I forget what the medicine was in it, but they gave me one of those like droppers where I could just push the button, but it only triggered it. Like I could only use it like every 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours or whatever it was. So I literally had like timers, and I would like wait, and I would just start hitting the button. Just
10 seconds early, like just fucking give it to me.
And then like, not only that, like just the anxiety, the stress, the depression, the whatever you want to call it, while I'm in this hospital, miserable, in pain 24/7. I'm not going to bed until 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And then what happens at 5, 6 in the morning? Here comes the shot nurses. They're waking me up with shots of this, shots of that every morning. So I'm only getting a few hours of sleep a night. My wake up call is getting stuck in the fucking ass with a needle. I was absolutely spent. And, so I never thought about ending it, but my thought process was, dude, even if I wanted to, I couldn't, like, so, who knows, but, coming out of that, being told I wasn't going to be able to do something, it honestly pissed me off. And I think that aggression and that desire to prove the dumbass doctor wrong
Yep.
is what really pushed me to giving it everything I had.
I love it, man. That your story is incredible. I love your story because I mean, you're certainly not the one, probably the only one I know, but you're like not the only person in the world to ever experience like a huge accident where you're on the
Right.
verge of death. But I feel like you kind of referenced in the movies a couple times, it's always like their life flashes through their eyes and they have the happy wife at the house with the kids in the swings and they're like, I can't let it go because I have so much back here that I need to
Yes.
get. And you didn't have that, which is like, which makes it so much extra special because you had like an unknown future that pulled you out of that. And some people, I mean, God, I can imagine most people, like if they didn't have that flash of like everything, like and like you said, like you have, you know, your family and like friends. So of course you had some things to like fight for and like be like, I'm not going because of that, but nothing as strong as like your own family unit and like
Right.
that big piece of the puzzle in life. And still for you to like be graced and gifted with the knowledge or intuition that like, no, there's something more, like just hold on, like maybe what's in right in your rear view mirror right behind you isn't enough to make you feel like you want to fight through this pain and stay awake and don't go to sleep even though you're super fucking tired. There's something on the other side of this in your future that's worth living for, that voice spoke to you and that you were strong enough to listen to it and go through all that and get to that point. And now, I mean, like, you know, some of the people that'll watch us know who you are through Apex and stuff like that. Some people won't. Like, you're fucking crushing it, man. Like, you're dominating life right now. So it's God, the universe, whoever, like they knew what they whatever knew what it was doing by saying to you, like, hold on tight, like you got something special ahead of you, and now you got a beautiful wife, a daughter, like you've got all that stuff that you were hoping to get by fighting your way through it. It's now your reality, and that's like incredibly amazing to witness and be like to listen to and share with you.
Thanks, man. No, it's definitely been an interesting ride, you know, because you're right. Like there's a weird transition that happened for me where I stepped into the shoes of like, this is who I am. Like I am living out what, you know, like, dude, I got a book launching. I'm speaking on stages. I'm on
Yeah.
podcasts. Like people care to know like who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm talking about. And like, I'm helping businesses. I'm helping people become multimillionaires. Like it's an incredible position to be in. And it was something that I had to step into, to be honest. You know, imposter syndrome, all the different things. But it's been an incredible experience because a lot of the wreck, like the battle never stops,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what the wreck now, it's like, you know, I say, you know, God, it's not that God put me on this earth. It's like God put me on this earth, but he kept me on this earth to do what I'm doing now. So like
Yeah.
every day I'm battling to do that justice. Like I'm doing justice to the fact that I got kept here.
Yeah. That you were given the strength in that moment to stay here and fight your way through it. Now it's like, hey God, I'm here day 3022. Hey God, I'm
Yeah.
here day 3023. Hey God, I'm here day 4500. Like I'm
Yeah.
every day that I got the future that you gave me and told me to fight for, I'm here, I'm fighting for it, and I'm going to make the most of it.
Yeah, bro.
Dude, that's incredible, man. Where can people find you online? This will probably, you said your book's coming out April 23rd. Is that what I read?
April 13th.
April 13th. Okay.
Yeah.
So this will probably launch right around that time, maybe a week or maybe a month before. So
Yeah.
do you have a website that people can go to like pre-order the book? What's
Yeah.
the best way for people to connect with you and to work with you?
Yeah, so absolutely. So you can find pretty much everything that I'm doing at ZackROYWilliams.com.
Okay.
And that'll be like you can get to any of my socials or anything, you know, you need to book the podcast, speaking. I've got a men's only accountability group. You'll be able to find all that there. But you know, if y'all need to find me or need to DM me, I answer all my DMs. It's really me. So Zack or Williams pretty much on every social platform too.
Awesome. I know you shared those links with me, so I'll put those in the YouTube notes for people to connect with you. Yeah, if you're watching this episode and you're like, it's a cool dude, this is like the tip of the iceberg. I would say absolutely, you know, follow him on social media, connect with him, learn from him. I'm not talking about it yet because I'm waiting for it to be a major success story, but I'm doing an Amazon store with these guys, and like I know that's gonna hit the roof soon. So just a ton of good stuff that you're doing, man. I don't know personally the work you're doing with internet marketing, but I follow your stuff and I watch it. I'm like, yeah, this dude's crushing it. So if you can connect with Zack in any capacity and work with him in any capacity, I would highly, highly suggest it, because it's just going to improve your life, man.
That's awesome, man. That means a lot to me. I appreciate you, Matt, for having me on this. And, for everyone else that's listening to this, just keep battling through it, whatever you're dealing with.
Yep. Awesome, man. Thank you for being here, brother. Thanks for sharing your story. Like I said in the beginning, if you've listened to this and it's inspired you, and if you have a pulse, this has inspired you, I'm sure, share it with a friend or family and just let everybody know. I've had my own battles, but not near death. Like, I wasn't laying in my own pool of blood moments away from like closing my eyes and leaving this earth. So the fact that you were that close to it and you came out through that and now you're doing what you're doing is inspiring, to say the least, man. So thanks for being here. I appreciate your friendship, the support, and just appreciate you as a human being, what you're doing.
Thank you, bro. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, man. I'll see you on the battlefield.